Hey guys, I'm here with Ed Verdel, my friend, colleague, and mentor. And we're going to be chatting about Ed's background, his career, how he got into real estate, and I also want to ask him some questions about his life outside of real estate. So Ed, welcome to our show, and thanks for taking time to chat with me this morning.
Thank you, Max. My pleasure.
So you've been in real estate a lot longer than I have. It's actually been over a decade, right?
It's been over a decade. At this point, we're about midway through 2024, and I'm at about 14 and a half years.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
But you didn't start in real estate after college, right?
I did not. So I went to school at Rutgers for finance. That was my major. And I ended up working for a Big Four accounting firm, a large accounting firm after college. And real estate kind of happened by accident. So essentially, I was working in the corporate world. I wasn't very happy with what I was doing. I wasn't happy with, I want to say, the cubicle life in general. And at the time, I had a little bit of debt from college that I wanted to pay off. Now, that debt was basically from going on too many spring breaks and putting them on my credit cards.
Smart.
But I had to pay that off, and I was looking for a way to make additional income. And at the time, somebody I knew was looking at apartments, and I tagged along, and I was in a conversation with the real estate agent who was actually a part-time agent at the time. He was working in finance in the city, and I was asking a lot of questions about the career of real estate, in particular at that time as a side hustle, because I was looking for the additional income. And I learned that it was a really great lucrative job that you can have on the side to make money. And for him, it was something he really enjoyed. For me, it was something that I studied in college and had an interest in. I was listening to real estate podcasts, radio shows, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I said, why don't I just give this a shot? And I decided to go and get my real estate license, took the course over the 10 weeks, I believe it was, on Saturdays. And that's kind of how I started my career. And I did it at a mom and pop little boutique in Hoboken. And from there, just kind of grew my business. But it started in corporate.
How long were you part-time before you said, I'm going to commit to it full-time?
Yeah, good question. So at that time, I was working for the accounting firm. I did that for 3 years, and then I jumped over to an insurance company. And then when I made that switch in the corporate world, I was even less happy, I think, with my job overall. I was happier with the income because it was increased, but I was less happy with my corporate job. And so I was there for another couple years. I think I did real estate 4 years part-time before I jumped into it full-time at the time.
Got it. And what was the impetus to say, you know what, I'm ready to go all in and turn it into a full-time career?
So as I was doing this part-time, I was meeting a lot of people. I was showing a lot of properties. I was working weekends. I was working nights. I was doing open houses. I was doing a lot of rentals. And in that process, I kind of fell in love with real estate because I just have this genuine interest of how people live. And it's around the world, not just here. Like, I just love to see how people live. And you can give someone the same apartment, you can give 10 people the same apartment, and everybody would decorate it differently, everybody would live in it differently, it would feel different, it would look different. So that to me was just fascinating about the job. I also saw that there was no ceiling into how much I could earn because I get out what I put into it. And I saw that reflected in my business. The more I was working, the smarter I was working, the more income I was generating in real estate. And I also just liked it a lot more than the cubicle life that I mentioned earlier. I really enjoyed being outside, walking around with people, getting some exercise, and being a big part of people's very important decision of where they live. So that was part of what led to me doing it full time. The other part was my corporate salary was here. My initial real estate income was here. My first year, I think I made $10,000 maybe doing it.
As a part-time agent.
Part-time, yeah. Every year over those 4 years, that increased. And at one point, my side hustle income from real estate almost matched my corporate salary, which was pretty good at the time. And I was turning away clients at that time because I was just getting busier in this real estate career. I was also really lacking at my corporate job because I was spending so much time doing real estate.
Right.
So I knew at that point that if I had left my corporate job, I felt very confident that I could at least replace that income with real estate, if not make more, just because I'd be able to put more into it.
So, given the fact that you already had a track record as a part-time agent and your income was increasing and kind of catching up to your corporate income, did it make it less scary to say, you know what, I'm quitting my corporate job and giving up the benefits and the steady paycheck?
Yes. The short answer is yes. When this whole thing happened, first of all, I'd been thinking about it for a while. I want to say to the tune of about 2 years, like before I actually made that leap. And I had conversations with a lot of people, and one of those people was my parents. And my parents kind of laughed at me about the whole thing because it's like, hey, you went to college, you got a degree in finance, you got a job for an amazing company out of college. You're launching your career, which is on a good path, a safe path. And being part of an immigrant family, they were kind of, their big risk in life was coming here to this country. After that, they wanted a safe path for the family. And so that's what they always foresaw for myself. And I was on that path. So it was very risky to leave, to go from a good salary and benefits to no salary, no benefits, and basically eat what you kill, right? That's the business. But given that I'd done it 4 years part-time and have kind of established myself, had a clientele, had referrals coming in, I was able to refuse business because of how much I was getting. I felt confident that it would be an okay, smooth transition for me, and there was less risk. Like I eliminated some risk by waiting long. A lot of agents jump into this career full time, and you and I both have conversations with those agents all the time that want to dive right into real estate. One of the questions I always ask them is, do you have savings? Because more likely than not, for the first 6 months, you're going to make nothing or very little, or very close to nothing.
Absolutely.
And lucky for me, I didn't have to have that experience. I did when I first started part-time.
Right.
I didn't do anything for I think my first commission check was, 4 months in maybe, and it was like $300.
Right.
But I eventually established myself and was able to create predictable income from it, and then I felt fine to do it.
So you went to work for you were at the same boutique where you were as a part-time agent?
No. So at the time I had reached out to my broker, and I had made a case for myself that I was putting in enough hours and doing enough business that I qualified as a full-time agent. Because to become a real estate broker and open up your own office, you have to have 3 years as a full-time agent.
Right.
Now I was outperforming most people in that office. And I was putting in a lot of time in my corporate job because I was really slacking in my corporate job and doing a lot of real estate, and I'm working like every weekend and working nights and everything. So he agreed that I was qualified. He signed off that I would be able to go get my broker license, and that's what I did. And my transition from the corporate world was directly into opening up my own brokerage.
Oh, wow.
In 2013.
Which was Verdel Real Estate.
Verdel Real Estate, yeah, which was 2013, yeah.
So you went from part-time to full-time and quickly starting your own business?
Yeah, at the same time.
At the same time?
Yeah.
And was that scary?
Yes, but I was confident, and I'm naturally somewhat of a risk taker. So I kind of was confident that worst comes to worst, I'll go back into the corporate world. I'll be able to get a similar job, and I'd be fine. So when I finished college, it was right before the financial collapse of 2008.
Yeah.
I finished my degree in 2007. So the job market was fine, but then quickly it wasn't. But by the time I went into real estate full time, by the time I got into real estate and then transitioned to full time, at that point it was 2013. Job market was better. Things were looking up. So I was confident that worst case scenario, I do have a fallback. So it was scary. It was scary, that I don't have that paycheck every 2 weeks or week, whatever it was.
But you were able to scale up fairly quickly once you started your own brokerage?
Yeah, so when I had my last year of part-time real estate and my full-time corporate career, my income was good. When I left to do real estate full-time, my income had dropped by about 30 or 35,000. But then the next year it far surpassed where it was with those two combined.
Got it.
So I had to deal with a little bit of a drop, but then it was
So within a year, you were making more money.
within a
running
year and a half, I would say.
a year and a half.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
than both. Yeah. So it was it was a fairly smooth transition.
And then at what point did you start bringing other agents on? Or for how long were you essentially a solo shop?
So that same year, I had met my wife earlier that year before opening up the brokerage. So she was my first agent. Then I had some other people that reached out to me that I knew from high school. I had I always had people reaching out to me. It was always organic growth. And that's kind of how it continues to this day. Like, we're not really actively trying to recruit people, but we do get inquiries.
Yeah.
You and I both individually, and other people on the team, to join the team or to just kind of work with us somehow. So we've always grown that way, and that's always how it started. So, but very quickly from 2013, let's just say I started with 3 agents. I grew to 15. I was at the 15 to 20 range pretty quickly. Just because not everybody wanted to work for a big company.
And a lot of them were part-time, right?
A lot of them were part-time. A lot of them still are part-time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you and I met roughly 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And for a lot of our viewers and listeners, you were actually my buyer's agent.
Yes.
So through a mutual acquaintance, we were introduced, and my wife and I were looking to get out of our Brooklyn rental finally.
Yep.
After way too many years in a 1-bedroom, and we decided to buy a multifamily in New Jersey, and we were introduced.
Right.
And you helped us buy our first primary residence in Jersey, and that's when I was looking for a career change and talked to you about potentially getting into real estate, and you said, yeah,
I had the same experience, right? Like,
exactly. So so I decided to join you at Verdel Real Estate.
yeah.
And it was great. It was scary for me because it was a second career change. And then fast forward, less than a year actually, right? Because that was summer 2019. Less than a year, we were supposed to have lunch in Little India, off General Square, and we met up. And this was like a week before COVID lockdowns. And you said, Max, I've decided to join Compass. Would you like to come with me? And you explained, you kind of gave me some of the rationale. And I said, sure, let's do it. So could you take me through that? You at that point, how many years were you a small business owner with your own brokerage, and what led to your decision to join Compass?
Before that, after about 5 years or so, the initial 2 years were very hard because there was just a lot of growing pains, a lot of things you have to do for compliance to open up your own brokerage, a lot of things nobody really wants to do. That are painful to do as a broker, to just keep compliant. So the first 2 years between that and organizing everything in the back office I was very busy doing my business, but also just doing that stuff, and it was kind of annoying. I didn't enjoy it. Then things got really running smoothly, but after about 5 years, what happened was I felt like we kind of hit a plateau, and what I noticed was, when you run a mom and pop shop or a small business or whatever, you're not really around other people that are doing very high level of production, unless you put yourself in outside events, which I was doing. But on a daily basis, I wasn't around people like that. And so I ended up having this feeling of like loneliness, that I wanted to belong to something bigger. At the same time, I knew that technology was advancing very quickly. I knew that the real estate industry in general was changing. A lot of changes were happening. And I've always followed Compass as a brand. I remember working in the city and hearing about Leonard Steinberg, who's the chief evangelist at Compass, one of the founding agents, jumping over to Compass at the time. And he was a heavy hitter in New York City, in Manhattan. And so I was intrigued by that article. I started reading about it, and I loved the brand. I loved the story. I loved the brand. I love that they're very advanced in technology. And so I followed their journey the entire way. And in 2018, which was 5 years after launching the brokerage, I had reached out to Compass corporate, just through some acquaintances I had made, and asked them if I could be their New Jersey guy. I said, hey guys, I'd love to see you in Jersey. I love your brand. Can I be the person to bring him in? At that time, it kind of fell on deaf ears. And I did get a response though. And the response was, hey, we're not coming to Jersey yet, but we probably will be around 2020. And sure enough, 2020 happens. I started hearing whispers of Compass coming to New Jersey, and they reached out and said, hey, Ed, we see you run your own boutique brokerage. Tell us about how much business you guys are doing. And we started a conversation, and then they said, we want you to be one of the founding agents of Compass as we come to New Jersey. And that's kind of how that happened. I was already so excited that we were even talking because I love the brand so much. And at the time, I was feeling that loneliness from having a mom and pop brokerage. I was already talking to other brokerages about potentially moving the team somewhere else. And I talked to maybe 3 or 4 other brokerages, and a couple of them made appealing offers. But Compass was always number one on the list because I just really love the brand, and I do to this day.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that during our lunch meeting.
Coincidence also, at about 18 years old, I got a compass tattoo on my back.
No way.
It's like a tribal compass. So all my friends from home who have known me forever make fun of me because I have a compass tattoo on my back,
hilarious.
and now I work for Compass.
So it was foreshadowing.
Yes.
When you got that tattoo years ago.
Yeah.
Incredible. Wow. So how has the journey? It's been what? So we joined
just over 4 years.
It's been over 4 years.
Yeah.
Overall, would you say you're happy with your decision?
Yeah. So the first year we joined Compass, our business at least doubled. And then after 2 years, it tripled. I don't know if it all goes credit to Compass, but certainly a good portion of it does. Certainly, we get calls for listings because we're part of something bigger. And certainly, we get a lot of referral business and great referral business from other Compass agents around the country. So I love being a part of it. It's been over 4 years, and hopefully, and I think you would agree with the sentiment that this is where we continue our careers and end our careers because we really like the company.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's take we've been talking about real estate for the most part. Let's take a break from real estate. I want to discuss some other topics. So a lot of listeners may not be aware, but you are a very well-rounded individual with a lot of different interests. You actually have a belt in jiu-jitsu. What color is it?
Purple.
Purple belt. And how many years have you been doing jiu-jitsu?
It's a long story, but so I was a wrestler in high school, captain of my wrestling team.
Oh, wow.
Loved to wrestle.
Didn't know that. See, I learned something new during this interview.
And so I was a pretty good wrestler back then. And in college, my priority was partying. Should be school, but I'm telling the truth here. It was partying.
So it's partying, then school, then wrestling, or partying, wrestling, school?
It was partying, then working out, then school back then. I didn't wrestle in college. Okay. I didn't try to wrestle in college because I was just like, I wanted to have a good time. And I felt a very big void in that competitive part of me that wanted to do something that's physical and to compete. And so when college was finished, there's no really that I know of wrestling for adults. So one natural transition is mixed martial arts for people that used to do combat sports of some sort. So after college, I started getting into MMA, mixed martial arts. I joined the gym. I started training in jiu-jitsu, boxing, some kickboxing, and kind of fell in love with that. And so that's what I did for years, and jiu-jitsu was part of that, and I trained jiu-jitsu for like 5.5 years. Then I took a huge break of 9 years. Actually, right when I left the corporate world in 2013, I stopped because all my focus was on this business, basically, because I was taking that risk that you mentioned, and I wanted to grow as quickly as possible and really just make a name for myself. So I let all my, I'm not great at prioritizing a million things. That was my priority. And other things fell by the wayside.
It's probably best when you're trying to build something.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, a lot of people have that experience, right? So
you got back into it at what age? Like in your mid-30s?
So 2013, I didn't train to 2022. And I did some boxing here and there, but I basically stopped. And then 2022, after having 2 kids and a better routine in life, then I started getting back into it. So then another 2 years since then.
And how many days a week do you typically train?
4 to 5 typically, but 3 to 5,
Okay.
I always shoot for 5. Today I'm not going because I'm here, for example, but I always try to go for 5.
Cool. Well, we could find a place to wrestle after this interview.
There's plenty of gyms around.
There's a mat right here.
Yeah.
So do you find that helps you relieve stress? Because we are in a
Yeah.
business that is relatively high stress.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of factors that are out of our control. So I think jiu-jitsu for you is probably a good outlet for that, right?
I think anything physical is very helpful. Anything from going for a walk to rigorous workouts. And I've tried everything in between, like CrossFit, boxing. I've done, I don't know, Pilates, a few classes, whatever. Just different things. Hiking, I love. But I think everybody needs some sort of physical outlet. It's super healthy for you. And we are, as you mentioned, in a high stress business, and we have to let it out somewhere.
Completely
and
agree.
I fully feel it in myself, like before going into class versus leaving. Like leaving, I feel elated. Like I feel like weight off my shoulders. I feel great. And the other thing about jiu-jitsu specifically, or combat sports in general, is when you're doing it, you cannot think about anything else because you're basically trying to survive. You're trying to not get choked, not get your arm or leg broken.
Yeah.
So you're not thinking about the deal or anything else going on in your life, in your relationship, with your kids, whatever. You're only able to think about that. That's one thing I also love about it. It's like it basically detaches your mind from anything else that's going on.
You just hit an age milestone. I'm not going to reveal your age, but do you think you'll keep going with jiu-jitsu into your next decade?
Yes. My plan is, as of now, to at least go the next 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
40s and 50s.
Fantastic.
I wanna do it.
Listen, man, props to you. That's awesome.
But we'll see because the sport is full of injuries. So
Sure. Well, stay healthy.
Yeah,
another thing I know you love actually, is travel. And it seems every month you're going somewhere. And I remember shortly after we met, you had a target. Now you did a lot of traveling in college, I think, and after college, right?
Yeah,
like
so
backpacking stuff. And you had a target. You mentioned a specific number, and I don't remember what that number is.
Still the same.
Number of countries you want to visit, right?
Yeah.
What is that number?
100.
100 countries.
100 countries.
How many have you visited so far?
35 so far.
35. So you have a way to go. 65 more.
I have a way to go, and COVID really set me back because we couldn't travel for a while.
Well, the problem is you keep going to Florida.
Kids too.
You keep going to Florida, which is not a country.
I know.
So you're setting yourself back.
I'm sorry. Let's start with this. I was an immigrant. So right there, you start with one country and move to another country.
True.
And there was other countries on the way. So my list grew from there.
Right. That's a more permanent type of travel.
but my family growing up, we all loved to travel. And we couldn't afford to travel internationally all the time. So we did a lot of traveling in the car, a lot of camping, for example, or staying in cheap motels or whatnot. But we were always like, every weekend we were, as far as I can remember, if we didn't have sports games or whatever, we were going somewhere. We were always doing something. And I think that carried on to adulthood. So after college, I had organized with two of my buddies a Euro trip for 7 weeks. And I organized the heck out of this thing. I put together a binder with a day-by-day itinerary with like breakfast, lunch, and dinner itinerary, like extremely organized. And
you had a spreadsheet?
The way the way I started the whole thing was I knew I wanted to go to Europe and I wanted to backpack. I should mention before that, in college, I did a backpacking trip in Costa Rica for 2 weeks. So that kind of opened up my eyes to backpacking, staying in hostels and everything. So after college, I organized this Euro trip, and I did it by looking at a globe, looking at a map, and then seeing that the closest spot from the US was Portugal that we can go to. And then from there, I basically started just drawing, hey, I want to see this city, this city, this city, this city. And I went around, I don't remember how many cities we saw. I want to say it was at least 20, because I believe it was 9 countries that we visited in that 7 weeks. So it was like every couple of days we're in like a new place. And we traveled by train. And so that trip was just incredible. With 3 of us went the entire time, and then we had friends of ours that went along the way. Like one came for the first 3 weeks. Another group of 5 people met us for 1 week along the way, and we just had the most amazing time. And since then, I've just absolutely loved to travel, and I don't need to travel expensively. I'm very happy to like just backpack and travel. Yeah. I just love to see the world. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the interview, I love to see how people live, especially how people live in other cultures around the world.
Sure.
Whether it's from
perspective, right?
Yeah, it gives you perspective. It shows you what you can appreciate in life, because some of these travels I encounter third world countries, you encounter people living in harsh conditions, harsh weather, not having air conditioning, things like that. And it really puts things in perspective, how lucky we are, how blessed we are to be here, and all the things we have. It makes you just more grateful in life, I think.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So do you think, do you appreciate like being your own boss and being in an industry where, you kind of get out of it what you put in? And
Sure.
We have to work hard oftentimes and to try to do the best we can for our clients. And if we do that right, it's also a lucrative business that we're in that allows us to have control of our schedule and to travel more. Are you happy with your decision having left the corporate world years ago? Because now it allows you to be more flexible and to be able to travel and hopefully one day reach your goal of 100 countries?
I'm gonna reach that goal. Yes, yes. It's great. I'm very happy to be. I mean, I love what I do in general. I love especially real estate as an investment vehicle, as a place to live. It's just an interesting asset class to me. But I do love the flexibility that this career provides. I tell people this sometimes. One year within the last decade, I don't remember which year it was, but I went on 13 vacations in a year. Like, where can you do that if you work in the corporate world? You don't get as much time off. Like, the most time I ever had off in the corporate world was my first position after college. I had 5 weeks off a year. But now I travel, I don't even know, probably 7-8 weeks a year, doing different things. So I do absolutely love that about it. It helps me. This is what makes me happy. For some people it doesn't matter. They don't need it, but travel really makes me happy. So I love to be in a position where that's allowable and affordable for us.
That's great. And between travel and jiu-jitsu, you are, for your clients, you can do the best you can, right? Because you relieve your stress and you get to explore the world, and then you come back refreshed, rejuvenated. But just so people don't get the wrong idea, you work weekends most of the time.
Oh yeah.
You work, you respond.
This is a holiday weekend. I'm working this weekend.
And you're responding to messages 7 o'clock in the morning or earlier and late at night.
I'm taking calls at 9 p.m. after I put my kids down.
Right. So this is in any business you get out of it what you put in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I completely forgot to mention the fact that you are a real estate investor, landlord, developer, in addition to being a broker and a team lead. Can you just briefly chat about that portion of your real estate journey? Like, are you willing to share how many units you own?
Yeah, sure. So the decision to get into real estate was for that side income, but why did I do real estate as a side hustle? I just have a deep interest in it, and I started really in college when I was listening to the Real Estate Guys radio show, which I know you were familiar with as well. And I took some classes that kind of opened up my mind to it. But what I noticed was that the majority of millionaires are millionaires through their ownership of real estate, and they continue to invest in real estate around the country and around the world. So I always had an interest in investing in real estate. And as soon as I can buy my first property out of college and in my corporate career, that's what I wanted to do. And I knew that. And I was looking, right away. I wasn't good at saving at the time. My priority was still partying at the time. But once I started saving some money, putting some aside, I was looking right away for properties. And so I bought my first property when I was 27. And my philosophy on it, which I'll make another video about probably, but my goal was always to try to buy a property every year, basically, because in 20 years, you own 20 properties. And in 20 years, that first property that you bought you probably paid off or so.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of build on that a lot. So that's what I started doing. And so I would buy property. And it wasn't anything crazy expensive or anything, but I just started my investment portfolio and I looked for opportunities. And the great part is that as real estate agents, we're on the ground. Like we're out there in the field and we're the first ones seeing opportunities. Yeah. So I was able to see not only individual opportunities, but also in this local area, we're in Hudson County right now, what are the markets that are going to be quickly appreciating, like the Heights where we're sitting in right now. Like this, I've been monitoring this market for, over 10 years and seeing that it was a growing area. And if you asked me 10, 12 years ago, I would never have seen myself in an office sitting here or owning real estate or living here, because I lived here as well, I would have said no way, I wouldn't live there. I was in Hoboken at the time, but that's how quickly this area has changed,
Yeah.
and we're at the forefront of that because we're seeing that because we're out there showing clients properties all the time. So I do invest in real estate.
Do you manage your own properties, or do you have somebody do it for you?
I manage my own properties, and I have partners in some properties as well. So at this point, I have 11 properties. I think I've probably bought, I don't know, 15 properties, but some I've bought and sold. And then you mentioned development. I've also developed ground up 2 properties so far. One was a single family home in Bergen County with a partner, and then the same partner and I did a 2-family condo conversion here in Jersey City.
And I think at that time, you guys set
well.
price records, correct? Or close to it?
We set price records here, I believe, yes,
Yeah,
in Jersey City.
in the Heights, yeah.
In the other one, in the Bergen County one, we hit a good price point also. I don't think it was a record, but it was substantial too.
Awesome. So you wear a lot of hats in real estate, and you have still find time for other things in life. What's as we wind down here, what's a tip you have for other people trying to balance career and personal interests and hobbies and the desire to travel? Do you have a secret? How do you balance it all? You're also a family man. And
it's a hard question. Honestly, I think you're better, Max, at balancing it than I am. But work-life balance is a thing a lot of people struggle with, and I struggled with also. Just remember that 9 years that I didn't do jiu-jitsu, something I love. It was because I was not balanced. I was focused on work, and then, like if you ask my wife when we met, and even when we had our first child, she would tell you that work was my number 1 priority, not the family. And so, right now, I'm very focused on family and health. Health being working out, that sort of thing. So I think it's hard for someone to keep that balance throughout their career. But I think you have to be mindful of it and understand that you can't prioritize everything, and you have to figure out what's important to you. Because I've seen a lot of very, very successful agents around the country that are very successful, that make a lot of money, that may drive a Lamborghini or Ferrari, but they're divorced twice. You know, they don't talk to their kids. Like, their family life suffers because they've put all of their eggs into the career basket. And if you look back in life, picture yourself when you're 90 years old. Are you really going to care about that Ferrari or those material things, or are you going to care about the memories that you made with your family? And most things I read or most things I hear about elderly folks that reflect on their life, that's kind of the message that they send is, I wish I spent more time with my family. I wish I cared more about my relationships, that sort of thing. Travel, how that relates to travel is that's really quality time I get to spend with my family.
Yeah.
My kids love it. My wife loves it. I love it. And so that's just where we're all the happiest. We get to spend good time together. And so, it all kind of works out.
I think this is actually a great way to end this conversation. It's been wonderful and actually informative for me, because I got to learn things about you, including the compass tattoo on your back that I didn't know about. So a lot of fun facts, and it was a great conversation. Before we say goodbye, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so a few ways. My Instagram handle is I Know a Broker, very easy to remember. My phone number, 201-679-7892. And we have our team website, vipteamrealestate.com. So those are all easy ways to get in touch with me or any of the agents on our team.
Awesome. Ed, thanks a lot.
All right, Max, thank you. My pleasure.